Welcome to today's deep dive. If you're listening to this, you likely have a pretty deep appreciation for knowledge.
Yeah, you tune into these discussions because, well, you want to be well informed, right?
Exactly. You want to build up your own mental library of facts, and you want to understand how the world actually works.
Right.
But today, our mission is to explore Nassim Nicholas Taleb's groundbreaking book, The Black Swan. And we're basically going to flip your entire relationship with knowledge completely on its head.
We really are. I mean, it's a massive shift.
Yeah, we're taking a journey into the mechanics of uncertainty to show you why taking what you already know too seriously is actually this huge vulnerability. And more importantly, how you can stop being a sucker to the unpredictable forces that really run our world.
It is such a profound shift in perspective. And to really ground this idea, I mean, we should start with this powerful visual from the sources.
Of the library.
Yeah, exactly. Just imagine stepping into this vast room, right? The walls are completely lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. You are looking at 30,000 individual books.
Which is just wild to even picture.
It is. And this was the actual physical personal library of the legendary writer and scholar Umberto Eco.
Right, and when most people walk into a room like that, the immediate reaction is just total awe, followed almost instantly by the question, wow, how many of these have you actually read?
Exactly. Because we treat a library like a trophy case, you know?
Yes, a fully read library is like this monument to our own intelligence. It's a physical manifestation of what we've conquered and what we already know.
But Eco viewed that massive collection through a completely different lens. I mean, he realized that a private library shouldn't just be an ego-boosting appendage.
Right.
It is a vital research tool. He understood that the books he hadn't read were actually infinitely more valuable than the ones he had already finished.
Which is such a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, he actually called this massive collection of unread books an anti-library.
An anti-library, which introduces this brilliant, almost, paradoxical concept of anti-knowledge.
Right.
It's the idea that our blind spots, like the virgin part of the library, the things we absolutely do not know, are far more important than our accumulated facts.
Because what you already know can't really surprise you.
Exactly. What you already know cannot completely derail your life or, conversely, make you wildly successful overnight.
So true. And to understand why our anti-knowledge is so critical to our survival, we first have to define the ultimate unknown that we are constantly interacting with.
Right. The namesake of the book.
Yeah, we have to define the black swan. And just to be absolutely clear for you listening, we are not talking about ornithology here.
No bird watching today.
Nope. We are talking about a highly specific, world-altering type of event.
And the sources outline a very precise anatomy for it. It's basically a triplet. First, a black swan is an outlier.
Right. It lies entirely outside the realm of regular expectations.
Because absolutely nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. It is fundamentally, structurally unpredictable based on historical data.
Yeah. And second, it carries an extreme impact. We aren't talking about, like, a minor disruption to your morning commute here.
No, definitely not.
A black swan reshapes society, economies, or individual lives on a massive scale.
Huge scale.
And third, and this is arguably the most dangerous characteristic of the triplet, we suffer from retrospective predictability.
Oh, this part is so true.
Because human psychology is just incredibly uncomfortable with the purely random, right? So after the black swan occurs, we collectively concoct a narrative that makes the event appear entirely explainable and predictable.
You pretend we saw it coming all along, like, oh yeah, obviously that was going to happen.
Exactly. We just rewrite history in our heads.
And the sources provide some really staggering examples of this. I mean, the astonishing meteoric rise of Google, the tragic events of 9/11, the devastating Pacific tsunami of 2004. None of these were predicted by the experts. All of them fundamentally changed the world.
And afterward, everybody had a retrospective theory about why they were totally inevitable.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Caleb uses this famous analogy that perfectly captures how our own reliance on historical data actively betrays us. The turkey problem.
Oh, man. The turkey is the ultimate cautionary tale for anyone who relies purely on past trends.
It really is. So imagine a turkey living on a farm. Every single day, for 1,000 days, the turkey is fed by friendly humans.
Living the good life.
Right. And every single day, the turkey's statistical data confirms, with increasing, ironclad certainty, that humans are benevolent creatures who are just looking out for his best interests.
The data is clear.
Very clear. The trend line is pointing straight up, and the turkey feels perfectly secure. But then, on day 1001, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, a massive, catastrophic revision of belief occurs.
To put it mildly.
Yeah. The turkey experience is a black swan. All that historical data didn't just fail to predict the future, it actively deceived the turkey.
Right.
The more data the turkey gathered, the more blindly confident and utterly vulnerable it became.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of that vulnerability. I mean, Black Swan is entirely relative to knowledge.
Relative to knowledge. Tell me more about that.
Well, that 1,001st day was a devastating, unpredictable black swan for the turkey. But it was absolutely not a black swan for the butcher.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The butcher possessed a completely different set of information and knew exactly what was happening all along.
Right.
So the event itself isn't intrinsically a black swan. It depends entirely on where you are standing, what your expectations are, and, what your blind spots hide.
Which is the anti-knowledge again.
Exactly. The core objective of navigating uncertainty is to figure out how to position yourself as the butcher rather than the turkey.
I really love that framing. Be the butcher. But this brings up an incredibly important tension.
What's that?
Well, if these massive world-altering events are constantly happening, why are human beings so uniquely vulnerable to acting like the turkey today? Like, we are apex predators. We've survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Why is our intuition suddenly failing us so spectacularly?
Because our biological instincts and our intuitive risk assessments, they were forged in a radically different environment than the one we currently inhabit.
Okay.
We act like turkeys because we fundamentally misunderstand the underlying architecture of the modern world. Like, we walk around making decisions as if we live in this tame, predictable, mathematically normal place that the sources call mediocristic.
Mediocristic.
But the reality is, human society has rapidly migrated into a wild, highly disproportionate landscape called extremistan.
So let's clearly define the boundary between mediocristan and extremistan, because this distinction really unlocks everything else in the source material.
It's crucial, yeah.
Mediocristan is tame. It is bound by strict, unbreakable physical limits. The classic example provided is human height or weight.
Right.
If you gather a random sample of 1,000 people in a stadium, and then you add the heaviest human being on the planet to that group, that single extreme outlier will not meaningfully change the total weight of the entire crowd.
No, it barely makes a dent.
Because in mediocristan, the collective always dominates the individual. A single event just cannot skew the total.
Extremistan, on the other hand, is completely wild because it is entirely scalable. There are absolutely no physical limits constraining the data.
Not at all.
No. In extremistan, one single event or one single person can completely disproportionate the entire total. Wealth, book sales, internet traffic, financial markets, they all live in extremistan.
Yeah.
If you gather 1,000 average people in a room and calculate their net worth, and then Bill Gates walks in, his single net worth doesn't just change the total, it completely obliterates it.
Right. The rest of the room is basically at zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The collective becomes just a rounding error compared to this single outlier.
But I want to challenge this idea of extremistan just a bit, to see how deep it goes into daily life.
Sure.
If I'm a software engineer working for a tech giant, I get paid a set salary of, say, $150,000 a year. There is a physical limit to the hours I can work in a day, and my paycheck reflects that physical limit. Isn't that just a modern version of mediocristan?
It absolutely looks like mediocristan on the surface, which is exactly why it's so deceptive.
How so?
Well, your compensation structure might have an artificial cap, but the product you are building lives purely in extremistan.
Oh, I see.
Think about the mechanics of the code you write. You exert the physical effort to write a software program exactly once. But once it is written, that code can be duplicated and deployed to 1 billion devices across the planet in a fraction of a second with zero additional physical effort.
Ah, so the scalability is decoupled from the physical labor.
Exactly.
Like a dentist has to physically drill every single cavity to get paid. That's non-scalable.
Mm-hmm.
But a developer, an author, or a financial speculator does the work once, and the impact scales to infinity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the shift from mediocristan to extremistan is accelerating at a terrifying rate due to technology, digitization, and globalization.
It's speeding up.
Massive winner-take-all effects are just becoming the default. And it's not just careers and wealth. The actual architecture of conflict has changed.
Work warfare.
Yeah. Historically, war was firmly rooted in mediocristan. It was hand-to-hand combat. You had to physically defeat your enemy one by one, meaning there was this natural physical limit to the speed and scale of destruction.
Right. A sword can only swing so fast.
But today, a single button push initiating a nuclear launch can cause global annihilation in minutes. The scale of consequence has magnified exponentially, which means the devastating impact of a black swan has magnified along with it.
Wow. So if we are living in Extremistan, this highly complex, infinitely scalable world, completely dominated by massive rare events, how is it that the quote-unquote experts continuously fail to see them coming?
Good question.
Like, why do the economists, the political forecasters, and the risk analysts confidently go on television and predict a stable future right up until the exact moment the market crashes or a revolution starts?
Because the experts are fighting the exact same human biology as the rest of us. Our brains are incredibly powerful pattern recognition machines, but they are hardwired with deeply embedded blind spots that actively hide black swans from our view.
We just can't see them.
No, we fall into these psychological mind traps, and the first major trap the sources identify is the narrative fallacy.
Oh, the narrative fallacy is fascinating because it's really rooted in our profound discomfort with chaos.
We hate it.
We absolutely hate the abstract. We cannot stomach raw, messy, unexplainable facts. So to soothe our own anxiety, we basically weave these random data points into neat logical stories.
Yes.
We force an arrow of cause and effect onto a fundamentally random world. Like we look back at a chaotic historical event and say, oh, A caused B, which inevitably led to C. We completely fool ourselves into thinking the world is a predictable machine governed by easily understood rules.
And the danger of the narrative fallacy is that it gives us a completely false sense of mastery over the future.
Totally.
We look at history and see this smooth, straight line of progression. But history doesn't crawl in a straight line. It jumps.
It fractures.
Yeah. It sits idle for decades and then completely rewrites itself in a single weekend. And our desperate need for these comforting narratives is compounded by a second massive mind trap, which is silent evidence.
Silent evidence.
Yeah.
Because history is entirely written by the survivors.
Exactly. Which means history systematically hides the unseen. The sources actually share this hauntingly beautiful philosophical anecdote about this.
Oh, and about the ancient poet.
Yeah, Diagoras. He was shown a painted tablet depicting a group of worshippers. These worshippers had devoutly prayed to the gods during a terrible storm at sea, and they subsequently survived the shipwreck.
Okay.
And the person showing the painting said, "Look, here is definitive proof that praying saves you from drowning." But Diagoras looked at the painting and asked a deeply profound question. He said, "Where are the pictures of those who prayed, then drowned?"
Wow. The drowned don't get to vote.
No, they don't.
They don't get to commission paintings or write memoirs about their experience. Their evidence is permanently silent.
This is survivorship bias on a grand scale. And we see this constantly in modern business and finance. We look at legendary risk takers. The sources use the unfailing luck of the adventurer Giacomo Casanova, and we obsessively study their quote-unquote methods.
Right. We buy their masterclasses.
We write best-selling books analyzing the brilliant strategies of billionaire CEOs, but we are completely blind to the silent evidence.
We ignore the massive cemetery full of failed entrepreneurs.
Exactly. People who utilized the exact same strategy but went utterly bankrupt. In a highly random, extremistan environment, a foolish risk taker can become a billionaire purely through statistical luck.
Just to roll the dice.
But our brains refuse to accept that, so we mistake their lucky survival for undeniable genius.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because our reliance on flawed logic creates what the author calls the round-trip fallacy.
Oh, this one is tricky.
It is. We constantly confuse the absence of evidence for the evidence of absence.
Oh.
And to explain how insidious this is, the sources use this incredible mental exercise based on Hempel's Raven paradox.
The red Mini Cooper.
The red Mini Cooper. Break down the mechanics of that paradox for the listener. Like, how does a car relate to our perception of risk?
Okay, so think about the statement, all swans are white. If I want to prove that statement to you, the natural thing to do is go out and look for a white swan.
Makes sense.
But logically speaking, finding a red car also supports my claim.
Wait, really? A red car?
Yeah, because a red car is a non-white object that is not a swan. So finding it means I haven't found a black swan, which technically supports the idea that all swans are white. It sounds absolutely ridiculous in conversation.
It really does.
But it exposes a massive critical flaw in how our brains process danger. We look out at a stable economy or a period of geopolitical peace, our version of a red car, and we say, look, No black swans. We have definitive proof that we are perfectly safe.
Right. We actively look for proof of our safety in entirely the wrong places,
Yeah.
simply because the disaster hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. This raises an important question for how we structure our lives and our societies. We rely on incredibly complex predictive models, whether for the stock market, national security, or corporate planning, that are built entirely on past data.
Yeah.
But if Extremistan is governed by unprecedented outliers, and our history is scrubbed clean by silent evidence, then relying on past data to predict future risk isn't just misguided.
It's dangerous.
The sources go so far as to classify it as intellectual fraud. You cannot measure the probability of an event that has never happened before.
So what does this all mean? If our predictive models are essentially fraudulent, and our brains are biologically wired to weave these false stories of safety, how do we actually survive?
It's the ultimate question.
How do we protect our savings, our careers, and just our sanity without trying to predict the unpredictable? Because the answer can't just be nihilism, right? We have to make choices.
No, you still have to live. The answer lies in entirely changing our posture toward risk. Since we know our risk measurement tools are fundamentally broken, we just have to stop trusting them. Specifically, we have to stop putting our resources into medium risk buckets. In the wild world of Extremistan, medium risk is a total illusion.
The total illusion.
It is just a negative black swan waiting to completely wipe you out when the models inevitably fail. Instead of trying to balance in the middle, the author proposes adopting the barbell strategy.
The barbell strategy. Okay, picture a heavy barbell at the gym. There are massive weights clustered on both extreme ends of the bar and absolutely nothing in the middle.
Exactly. The mechanics of this strategy are designed to remove the psychological panic of uncertainty.
How does it do that?
Well, on one extreme end of the barbell, you become hyper-conservative. You allocate 85 to 90% of your resources, your money, or your energy into extremely safe, unglamorous instruments.
Like what?
The sources use treasury bills as an example, assets that are as insulated from market crashes as humanly possible. By locking down that 85%, you mathematically cap your downside. You clip your incomputable risk.
Meaning no negative black swan, no sudden market collapse can pierce that floor and actually ruin you. You completely remove the existential dread. And then what do you do with the remaining 10 to 15% on the other end of the barbell?
On the other side, you become aggressively speculative.
Oh, nice.
You take that small protected fraction and you put it into high leverage bets, venture capital, speculative options. You put it into vehicles that have a massive open-ended upside if a positive black swan hits, but where your maximum possible loss is strictly capped at that 15%.
So if the bet fails, you are annoyed, but you are not ruined.
Right. And if it succeeds, the payout scales infinitely.
So how does a normal person apply the barbell strategy to their career or their daily life? Most of us aren't Wall Street traders.
True.
It's really about differentiating between negative black swan environments and positive ones. You want to fundamentally avoid areas where an unexpected surprise can only destroy you.
Right. Think about the architecture of banking, lending, or even a career in homeland security.
Okay, let's look at banking.
If you are a bank issuing a loan, the absolute best case scenario is that the borrower pays you back exactly what they owe, plus a predetermined bit of interest.
There's a firm ceiling on your upside. You can't make more than what was agreed upon.
Exactly. But the surprise scenario, a systemic default where you lose the entire principal, that is a negative black swan environment. A surprise can only hurt you.
But then look at positive black swan environments, right? Scientific research, writing a book, creating a podcast, or starting a niche tech company.
Endless upside.
Exactly. If you spend a year writing a novel, your downside is totally capped. The absolute worst thing that happens is nobody buys it, and you lose the time you invested.
Which hurts, but doesn't ruin your life.
Right. But the upside, a surprise viral moment, could mean you sell millions of copies, get a movie deal, and change your life forever.
So true.
The barbell strategy in daily life means keeping the boring, stable day job that pays the rent, your 85% safe zone, while spending your nights enthusiastically building a side hustle that exposes you to that infinite upside.
And this leads directly to the most actionable behavioral advice embedded in the sources, which is to maximize your exposure to serendipity.
Serendipity, I like that.
You cannot predict when a positive black swan will arrive or what it will look like, but you can intentionally put yourself in its path. As the scientist Louis Pasteur observed, chance favors the prepared.
And the author suggests we actively collect free non-lottery tickets. But how do we actually do that in practice?
By aggressively maximizing your surface area for luck.
Okay, give me some examples.
Go to the networking event you were planning to skip. Strike up a conversation with a stranger on an airplane. Live in a densely populated city if you can. If someone proposes a coffee meeting that seems slightly intriguing, say yes.
Put yourself out there.
You are deliberately putting yourself in situations where the favorable consequences of an unpredictable encounter are massively larger than the wasted hour it took to attend.
Right.
You don't need to predict exactly what connection will change your life. You just need to be constantly standing on the field with your catcher's mitt wide open.
It's basically a philosophy of aggressive trial and error. Like, free markets and innovation don't actually work because they reward brilliant foresight perfectly.
No, not at all.
They work because they allow thousands of people to aggressively tinker, fail small, and occasionally get insanely lucky.
And the crucial component to remember is that while you are eagerly collecting those positive opportunities on one end of the barbell, you remain absolutely paranoid and heavily protected against ruin on the other end. That is how you survive Extremistan.
We've covered some immense psychological and mathematical ground today. We started by standing in Umberto Eco's anti-library, really learning to fundamentally value our anti-knowledge, the blank spaces in our understanding, over the facts we already hold.
Yeah, we mapped out the wild, highly improbable landscape of Extremistan, where the collective is entirely dominated by the extreme outlier.
And we unpacked the mind traps that keep us blind, how the narrative fallacy forces us to weave false stories of control, and how silent evidence hides the graveyards of the unlucky.
And finally, we explored the barbell strategy, mathematically protecting ourselves from ruin while eagerly exposing ourselves to the massive upside of positive black swans.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a highly specific piece of philosophical advice from the author about how to handle the daily frustrations of this totally unpredictable world.
Oh, this is a great one.
He uses the example of missing a train, and he writes, "Missing a train is only painful if you run after it.
Right.
You are only exposed to the emotional toll of the improbable if you let it dictate your reactions. If you consciously refuse to run for the train, you stand above the rat race by choice. You reclaim your autonomy."
It's completely about recognizing what you can control and structurally insulating yourself from what you can't.
And as you mull over how to start building your own anti-library and collecting your own free non-lottery tickets, here's a final metaphysical thought drawn directly from the text to really carry with you.
Yeah.
The next time you find yourself deeply frustrated by a delayed flight or a spilled cup of coffee or a derailed plan, take a breath and zoom all the way out. Remember that the simple fact of your existence is an extraordinary, mathematically absurd piece of good luck.
Truly absurd.
Think of the astronomical improbability of your specific biology. Think of the unbroken, fragile chain of ancestors who had to survive predators, world wars, and famines just for you to be here right now. You are the result of a chance occurrence of monstrous proportions. Your very existence is the ultimate positive black swan.
There is really no better way to frame it. You are the improbable event.
Keep tinkering, keep exposing yourself to serendipity, and keep building that anti-library. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.